Hey y'all, this is a Necrotic Wake 15 that I'm semi-pugging. I'm in voice chat, voice comms with the Rogue and the Mage here, but I don't have any specific strategies to take advantage of that fact. So this translates pretty well to pug play. It's just a couple of my friends that I like playing with, and we just pick up, do Mythic Plus. The video started kind of abruptly because I have a bad habit of forgetting to record before the key starts. So if you notice some sloppy play at the beginning, that was partially because I was actually tabbing to start the recording, because I've been wanting to record my stuff for a while now. Now that I've started to actually complete and time plus 15s and pugs. I'm not the best player out there. I'm not really particularly good, but a lot of these videos of high keys I don't think are applicable to pugs, and I mean, you learn a lot from them. I learn a lot from them, but you can't do crazy pulls and pugs consistently unless you really pre-plan a lot of things. A lot of these groups, they just want to load in and get to pulling. So that's why my pulls you're going to see my pulls are pretty small. I just kind of do one pack at a time, even something like this. Maybe it's a bit too conservative on my end, but, and maybe it's these affixes this week, but I feel raging and explosives is pretty hostile to big pulls, because if everything rages at once and you're not ready to with a specific kiting pattern, then that's a problem. If people aren't 100% on top of the explosives, which a lot of pugs aren't, that's another problem. So these first few pulls, they were semi-hectic. I don't know how to describe it, but this is less of the pulls being hard and more that I just feel that when you start a week, when you start a key, just the first few pulls people don't respect in a sense, and they don't realize these mobs are difficult, and if you just kind of don't think about it and don't interrupt everything that you need to interrupt, they will hurt. So even that first pack of Patchwork Soldiers, I felt like everyone was just kind of doing their thing, and then they all raged, and I actually dipped pretty low for a bit. As far as the route, there's nothing too crazy here. I start with the, if you remembered from the first pack, I pull the rightmost caster and the Patchwork Soldiers and not the Blight Bags. That's just what Mythic Dungeon Tools told me, which I don't think is always accurate. I made the route myself, and it just plays into a few percents here or there. And then you just hug to the right and pull the packs, and you get this Prideful for the boss. So pretty simple stuff. Other notable thing about Necrotic, you also see I forget my Mistcaller Orcarena. I just got a 210 eye level one, so I'm still not used to keeping the buff. I should probably just make a weak aura. See, so it's Tyrannical this week. This boss used to scare me. It's pretty scary in inexperienced groups. If you're in a group that's just pugging for weekly chests, you could actually easily wipe on this boss if they don't DPS the ads. The way these ads work is they melee cast on someone, they fixate and then cast a melee thing. If they get 3 casts off, then they cast an explosion that will basically wipe unless you down the boss within 3 seconds. It will wipe even on fortified weeks. But these ads are kiteable, they're CCable, they really don't have that much health, so it's pretty bad if it's just a lack of awareness or something if they don't die. So the boss wasn't super ideal. As you see, I had to like roll through the thing, and the group wasn't clear that like I told them in Discord like, oh, when it gets covered, I'm just gonna roll through and use the movement ability, and it won't be a big deal. But I think maybe the hunter and the priest got the wrong idea and like tried to go in and had to go out, and that type of stuff's just gonna happen on pugs. You know, stuff's not gonna get communicated, and every once in a while you just have to plan around mismatches of strategies and things. It's not necessarily that like one person's playing, it's just the realities of, hey, not everyone's on Discord, not everyone's communicating. So with this route, we're going to skip the mini boss coming up, which means you have to pull some pretty specific things. So you pull these 2 blight bags and this pack, so that's pretty standard. And then there's a patrol of blight bags, and 2 patrols of patchwork soldiers, I think. And with this route, you need to avoid those. There are routes where you do pick those up, but after we do this pack, we will avoid them. I didn't talk about too much of the specific mobs, but you know, hopefully if you're going into tins or something, you have a somewhat, I guess not necessarily, like a lot of times before you do plus tins, people could just kind of outgear a lot of the cast going off. So I type, yeah, we need 1 patrol. Oh, if it wasn't clear, I'm the like bright shirt guy, and then me on the bottom is like me recording my face during the pull. So like I recently shaved, that's the difference. So yeah, we pull these blight bags. It kind of sucks, but you do. I am willing to wait around for these to patrol over. So this is a kind of funny thing, is this hunter is like, if you see this hunter right here, I'm like really scared. So I start kiting these back to bring my hunter closer so they don't accidentally pull that. Because I think they would, yeah, they were right here, and I feel like they could have very easily pulled that. And my friends were joking, like, oh, you were kiting the hunter. Which is a joke, but also it's kind of reality. I was kiting my pug teammate, and that's how you really just have to play differently in pugs, and you can't expect everything to go perfect. And which is kind of, it's mostly frustrating, but sometimes fun. Of like, oh, how do I get these dynamics to work in uncoordinated groups? People try to too often replicate like what pros do, and even in these high commentary videos, like the pros will say, like in a plus 20, they're like, hey, don't do this pull if your group isn't coordinated, because you need very specific things to happen in order to accomplish it. I know I'm talking a lot about meta stuff right now. I don't think there's anything too terribly interesting about the specific mobs, other than the route. You know, these things blow up into a disease. The Necromancer, you want to CC and interrupt the ads and just focus the Necromancer, because all the ads blow up when the Necromancer dies. The Corpse Collectors, you need to interrupt drain fluids. And the like the big abomination things, you need to interrupt Meat Shield. If you just want a quick overview of what to interrupt. These, you need to interrupt Bone Mend and Rasping Scream. So this is like a pack you need to double interrupt. Also the Skeletal Marauder Cleave, so you saw the Rogue dip. That was me kind of being hectic about the positioning, wasn't really the Rogue's fault, but yeah, other melee can't be in front of that. The final bargain thing is the caster heals something, but then takes a lot of health damage itself, so you can't interrupt that, but you could stun it, and it's also a long cast, so you could, as if that cast would have went off, it wouldn't have done anything because all the other mobs are dead. So this route coming up is or not route, this skip is coming up, and you get the pride, and then you skip this next pack, and you just start going as normal. So you could do a Shroud skip, you could use Invis Pods, or you could just have a Priest Mind Soothe. So we just go with a Mind Soothe. And then there are tools you could pick up. This hammer and that spear are pretty powerful. The spear is a huge DPS increase. It does quite a bit of damage and makes the target take like 10 or 20% more damage for 10 or 20 seconds. I get the 10 and 20 mixed up. Maybe they're both 10s. The hammer is a big damage and stun. Basically, I like saving spears for bosses and hammers for mobs. There's also a tool we forgot to pick up, the Anima Orb, which is a huge AoE damage plus interrupt. It's really good on the Necromancer pack before the second boss and good on the second boss itself. I usually like spending one on both because you get two during the dungeon. I haven't explored too much of like when to save tools for beyond the second boss. Again, because I'm a pug, like a pugger, I don't like doing crazy strategies like that, because if you die with the tool, you lose the tool forever. Well, I guess talking about the run, so this is not intended. I did not want to pull these. This was a big mistake, and as you could see, kind of an explosive went off, and stuff's just kind of going crazy, because all of these ads are spawning explosives, and our healer died, and we're just falling behind. And you'll see shortly that this is a wipe. So we just lost a bunch of tools, which is pretty unfortunate. I think no, it looked like we picked up that hammer at the beginning. Yeah, there's a spear right around here that you use on the first boss typically. Everyone generally understands to do that. So yeah, not a great wipe. What happened if you didn't see it, I'll zoom back real quick and then fast forward. So I pull with Crackling Jade Lightning. Sorry, I only go by up 10 or 30. But yeah, I pull these with Crackling Jade Lightning. That's just like a ranged attack. And that was my mistake. It was actually entirely me. I didn't realize they would chain pull. I just thought the gap was smaller here. Or bigger here, that they were like outside of the chain pull radius. You know, I don't really know exactly what that radius is, but they chain pull, so not too much to say about it. We chain pull and walk back. As you see, I have this orb on me now. Because we forgot the orb before, I go pick it up, and in a way it's like kind of good that we didn't pick it up, because if someone picked it up, then we would have lost it forever. Again, if you lose the tools, if you die with a tool, you lose it forever. So that's why saving tools is like, I don't have any like strats for saving tools beyond the second boss, just because the moment one person dies, you lose the tool. So it just becomes riskier and riskier to save tools. So I pulled this correctly. This boss, the Marauder has something when like the shield, if the shield breaks before it expires, it takes a huge chunk of damage. So that's why if your DPS is strong, you could pretty easily deal with the Marauder, just because it'll get bursted down. The Sorcerer, you don't have to interrupt the Necrotic Bolts unless you're doing a bigger pull, but the Bone Carvers do a lot of damage too. I don't know if they have like some debuff or something, but they actually do more damage and are scarier than the Sorcerers to me. Now these Shuffling Corpse plus these two Bone Carvers, that is a safe puggable double pull. Even if, you know, half of these weren't dead from the like our wipe, I would have actually just straight up double pulled them. That's like a safe double pull to do in a pug. So I still have the orb. I probably tell my major rogue friend to get the spear and save it for the boss. So normally I like to use a hammer here too, but we all kind of died. I'm not like super rushing in, both because I need to remember to redo my Ocarina, but also give people opportunities to CC, so it's a pretty good time to use the Ocarina. And because we don't have a hammer, I use the animal orb here. I think I might just like use the animal orb here regardless, just because I think 2 orbs is a bit unnecessary on the second boss. But you know, theoretically, if you have all your tools and your run's going perfect, you could use 2 orbs for the boss and then 1 hammer for this pack, and that's like slightly more optimal, but that's playing around the best case scenario at the same time. So yeah, this is the strength of the route, is when you pug, I feel a lot of tanks don't get a prideful before here, and you get just the prideful is not synced with the second boss. But the second boss is like the hardest in the dungeon for me. I feel most groups wipe here. And like this is gonna just say like this is gonna make or break your dungeon if you could beat this boss or not. I feel if you don't beat this boss on the first pull, you basically can't time it because you don't have Lust and Pride. Oh yeah, so keep in mind, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of pugs don't know this, but there's an animal orb tool hidden here. So it's like hidden. So make sure to go grab that. You know, if no one else is, just go grab that. And you see, like, none of my group really knew. Okay, so it kind of skipped too far ahead. Sorry. When the boss summons adds, this is actually the most important thing. You could CC the adds and keep them CC'd, and they won't explode when he does the thing. So watch it. We're going to keep these CC'd, so you could do hard CC. So Shackle Undead, Freezing Trap, Paralyze for Monks. A big thing people don't know about is Turn Undead from Paladins. Paladins have this like meme spell that fears an undead for 40 seconds. That actually works. You fear the undead and you ignore it. So look, these adds, they were CC'd and they don't blow up and wipe us. If those aren't CC'd and didn't die, we would be wiped. So that's how you actually make this boss easy. So it seems like complicated, like, oh, well, that's just like more things that could go wrong, blah, blah, blah. I think before every pug, I tell my group, I'm like, hey, this has to happen. Because it just saves you so much DPS, and this is kind of a DPS race. Like, I think if you get a third ad phase, it's going to be really hard to beat the boss just because of the healing requirements and people's damage tapers off. And it's just a really hard boss. So yeah, be sure to CC ads and think about every CC that you could do. And it's easy to CC the ranged ones just because, like, they're not going to be in the group. They won't get cleaved. And don't, you know, it's best to CC the mages, but like CCing a crossbowman is fine. Okay, so the other thing is if you get the pride before the second boss, with this route I'm doing specifically, you will have to go back and get one pack. And you get this pack, which is actually kind of hard because it's 3 casters and a marauder. And the other tricky thing is this patrol you see up top. So I'm trying to like pull these back, but not everyone's really on the same page as me. So yeah, there's this kind of like, I call it a softened rage because it's a patrol. And yeah, I had to interrupt the boneman, but then I didn't have the interrupt for fear, so I like rolled out being scared. There wasn't an interrupt, but there was. And luckily my rogue friend is good at the game, and I trust them and all that. So they did the smart play, and they go actually distract this patrol when it starts getting kind of close. Yeah, they go throw a distraction real quick. See, so that stops it from patrolling. Although I think it's about at the end of the patrol. I think if you get the mobs to here, you're basically fine. That's another thing that could go wrong in pugs, is people take the angels and like they kill the boss and then they just kind of tune out. They probably alt tab and take the angels. And
that pull would be really hard with 4 people instead of 5, and the only way to actually get back down is to kill yourself, which just takes time. There's the death timer. So yeah, it's looking... This is like kind of sketchy on time. I don't have a really great sense of like what's a good, nice, safe time to be up here, but this room takes a while, so like there's just so much trash and some RP and different things that just eat up your time up here. The big thing in this room is this gore splatter cast that we just interrupted. That is a must interrupt. It does so much damage. It just puts a huge dot. It's like a dot, but a quick dot. It's like a 4-second dot that'll just murder the group. If it's a fortified week, I think it's just a wipe if one of those casts go off. And these are the same mobs that cast Drain Fluid, which also needs to be interrupted. So it's like the mobs just like get an extra ability, and you have to interrupt it. Like, that's something that it should be someone's job to interrupt gore splatter. It's really hard to do that like in lower keys, like at 10s or whatever, because I feel a lot of people are just like don't know the mechanics when they're doing plus 10s, and they just try to get their weekly chest, and they don't really want to learn the mechanics. I'm not even flaming anyone. It's just like how psychology works. It's like, why learn the mechanics? Like, oops, we wipe on a pack, but like I'm just trying to do it for completion for my chest. I'm not really trying to time it. And this is where the advantages of being in Discord with at least some of the players is, because like with these corpse collectors, I told my rogue friend, hey, your job is to interrupt core splatter. And as you can see, they're not even like, they're just stunning the corpse collector. They're not even doing anything else, which like ideally they would be DPSing the stitch work, because this puts a stacking armor. It's this stacking debuff right here. I think from Tenderize. Yeah, from Tenderize. It just makes me take a lot more damage. But whatever. Low coordination. You have to make some concessions sometimes. So a scary thing specifically about raging in Tenderize. If you get hit by Tenderize while the mob's enraged from this raging affix, I think you basically just get one shot. And on fortified keys, you could like the mob just has so much health that you could also get one shot if it stacks too high. I know sometimes when the DPS isn't there or not focus firing, I actually have to do like taunt swaps with a pet or like some class with a taunt, and you'll tank it here, and then you'll use all your movement to go on the side of the room, and then they taunt it back, and then you taunt it back, and it's just enough time if you execute it well to get rid of your stacks. And that's really hard to do in a pug, so that's another thing where like being in voice call with at least one other person helps, just because you could do these like, I call them like 2-man tactics or something, where it's like, oh, this is a good strategy for Mythic Plus. It only needs 2 people to coordinate, but it could help a lot, especially with like tanking kind of oriented things. So that's one recommendation of pugging, is to like, it helps a lot to get in voice chat with like at least one person, and it lets you hammer out these key details that often wipe groups. And it's not something super advanced. I'd still call this a pug. We're just like talking about a couple things here or there. So nothing crazy here. The routes lining up well. It's just the timing from that wipe is scary right here. So the thing I like about this route too is there's a lot of routes that get prideful before the second boss. Not all of them, but there's also a lot of routes that
they get pridefuls in the middle of these packs, which is like super awkward. Now, I wouldn't consider this being in the middle of the pack because like it's pretty easy to get prideful with 2 patchwork soldiers. These mobs aren't super scary, although they do hit hard when enraged. But oh, sorry, it was at 90%. I thought a prideful was spawning. We won't even get prideful till the very end. Oh yeah, so really what I was talking about and referring to is like sometimes you'll be in a pack with a Kyrian Stitchwork or something, the things that tenderize that I was talking about, and like if a prideful spawns in the middle of that, that's really bad because you want the DPS to like focus the prideful so the stacks don't get too high, but you also need the other stacks to not get too high of the other mob, and that's just kind of a not doable situation. There's also routes that will spawn a prideful in the middle of this like mini boss gauntlet. So like the boss summons these 2 Stitchwing assistants, they'll give some percent, and then it'll summon this abomination right here. And if you get a prideful after that abomination, there's this other abomination that spawns, and that auto combats you. You can't do the prideful then do this. Like if I were to get a prideful here, these would go into combat. And that's basically a wipe. This Gore Grind does the same tenderize debuff here, so it's basically like a Kyrian Stitchwork. And yeah, I just wouldn't be able to do a prideful there. Like I've had that happen in some routes before. Like if someone accidentally pulls extra or something, the route gets a little ruined, which happens sometimes. That's like a we need to lust to kill this pride situation, which obviously hurts a lot of other aspects of the run, makes the bosses harder. But this is lining up perfectly. Now when the boss summons his own abomination that you have to use to hook the boss down, that doesn't auto combat. So we're going to get prideful here. We won't get auto combat because like this is a gauntlet and then there's the boss fight. They're not really connected other than like flavorfully, I guess. So that I'm kind of pulling this guy back for 2 reasons. So he doesn't do tenderize things, so you don't have to worry. This one's actually easier than the previous mini boss. But this Rot Spew has an AoE disease cloud that also persists after death, so the body just permanently has this AoE damage on it. This actually is a little bit scary for me because of like all of these are enraged. I should have ring of peace them away actually, but not a big deal. I'd say our group in general is performing pretty well. So yeah, as you can see, this is actually, if you go near here, you actually take damage, so you don't want to tank it in the middle of the boss fight, because it makes aiming hooks and stuff really awkward, because then people might just land in a cloud and there's these like puddles that you have to stand out of anyway. That death is a bit unfortunate, but it's just how it happens with these like chain pulls type things. Oh, if you're a class that could res, always call out that you're resing in a pug, because a lot of healers, like, rightfully so, have to do, like, think they have to do everything, and it helps a lot to res for the healer so that they can heal and drink. Because really, like, okay, what would I be doing if I'm a monk? Like, no, I should be resing. That's the best thing I could do in this downtime. So this was awkward. So what happened here is not obvious. So the priest was standing really close to the boss in case they got hooked, that they could easily just be in position already. But the problem is, like, they were ready to get hooked and then move out the way. The problem is the boss throws these puddles at random players that stay throughout the whole fight and do a lot of damage. So the priest was standing where the hunter should have been, like, would want to be standing after he gets hooked. And then the priest kind of, you know, it's unlucky, but we also could have played around it. The priest got targeted by this puddle, so now the hunter's forced to stand in the puddle. The puddle does a lot of damage on Tyrannical and just dies. The hunter can't really do anything about it. The priest shouldn't have been in that spot. The priest is an engineer, so is able to battle res. That's how we battle res, is a engineering priest. Tips for DPS: if you get the hook, don't move, because tanks need to position the boss between the hook and you, and if you just keep moving all the time, I can't position it, and like sometimes the fixation goes off, and then the boss will like start running to the side right before the hook goes off, so it's not always consistent. Oh, another awkward thing is that look at when Lust so the hunter died. So ideally you want to lust right when the boss is, but the hunter just lusted. So the boss went up and the hunter lusted. This is a hunter lust. The mage knew not to lust. So this is a really bad lust, because you really want to put as much damage into the boss as possible to ideally get it into only 2 phases. So yeah, we have like 7 seconds of lust to use on the boss, which is not great. This fight also progressively gets harder. It's not as simple as like, oh, let's just do another phase. See, look, that's moving the arrows too much. Then the fixation cast, we kind of got lucky there, I think. You really just need to stay still with that meat hook when the boss is down. So yeah, this boss isn't as simple as just, oh, you just do this 3 times. It's simple, right? Because when the boss goes up, he calls another abomination, and tanks can't really tank 2 of these. Luckily, I made my DPS friends aware of that. So again, another advantage of being in Discord. I told them, hey, you have to kill this abomination or they're gonna kill me, because they cast these mutilates, which are just big tank hits that the fight is just not tuned to, like, for a tank to take 2 of those. So that's kind of why there's like I'd say a softened rage of like, oh, if you try to go into a 3rd phase, the boss is gonna call 2 of those things, and it gets really bad really quickly. Healer's calling for mana, that's why the pull isn't immediate. They need all the mana they could get for this fight. I thought this fight was easy, but as I played it more on like high for my eye level, high for pugging keys, I realized that it's actually really difficult on Tyrannical. Not really because of the mechanics, but just the health of the boss is like so high. And a little known mechanic about this boss is after it puts like a frozen bind, like the root, on someone, it then gets a shield. Okay, yeah, so it gets this Icebound Aegis, and this shield does a lot of damage. That's why like everyone's just taking a bunch of damage until you break it, and it just does more damage and is harder to break the higher the key. Luckily, I communicate with my rogue. Hey, I'm gonna step out, and you just circle around the boss. So we have more uptime to be able to break this Aegis, because as you see, like the Aegis goes down, and look at people's health just kind of drop. This might, I don't know if this is like uniquely bad for a priest, but like to heal through, but I think it's just hard to heal for everyone. So our hunter died. That's not great. The priest battle res is cool. I don't really know what killed the hunter. It doesn't really matter. I'm not really trying to focus on like my pug teammates. And yeah, the timing's sketch. I don't know. It's like 2.5 minutes for a boss seems good, but like just look how slow it is because of the DPS constantly getting sent. So it's basically you're playing 2 DPS healer tank. It's just not good. So I realized here, oh, my rogue friend got sent down, so now I get to circle the boss, do a little bit more damage, and every bit of damage counts here for sure. I didn't talk too much about cooldowns. I'd say that's my weak point, like one of my big weak points. I have a lot of weak points, but I don't know like the best time to use my cooldowns. For this fight, I'd say the best time is during that Icebound Aegis to pop a cooldown just to help your healer. So you're taking less damage so they can focus a bit more on healing everyone else. I'm like somewhat new to Monk, but like I'm really bad at, I don't know like the best times to use Zen meditation. I guess I could like Tiger's Lust and Zen meditation during a Comet Storm just to ease up on the healer would be something. I Fleshcraft there just for this like Covenant ability that increases my max health when I Fleshcraft for like 30 seconds. I was like, maybe this is a defensive that I need, because as you see, our healer's running low on mana here, and everyone's just kind of dying. And this is funny too. We actually, like, we're getting so close and everyone's dying, and we actually told our mage to, like, literally combust on the ad just so they could, like, get up here and help us finish the fight. And, we're also running out of room is the problem. And my mage friend actually suicides because there's no room. We could like go back on it. See, there's no room to even walk anymore. So my mage friend suicides, but is Dreamweaver, so goes in a pod, and then like we die, and then they pop out the pod and just like fire blast. And if you weren't paying attention to the timer, so just the healer's out of mana, just everyone's dying. We have 9 seconds left. Pyroblast, and then the boss dies. So that was a really close dungeon. It's cool that we recovered from a wipe. But you know, that's just how tight these like DPS timers are, you know. Yeah, sure, theoretically it's like, okay, if you do more double pulls and stuff, you speed it up, but like that just opens yourself up more for wiping. So yeah, you could do high risk things to get a more comfortable timer, but that just means I think you fail more keys. And it was a 15. I'm trying to get the 15 Keystone Master Achievement. And yeah, that's why I just try to play it safe and hope the DPS is there, and hope all that, like, perfect execution over like high risk time saver type stuff. So I hope this was useful. This is a pretty hard key in my opinion. One of the harder dungeons on Tyrannical. I'm trying to think. Maybe I could have covered the route a little bit more in depth. Trying to think. After the wipe, I like go look in the route. I guess one last tip. I recommend making a button called MD, like a button that literally just a macro that says /MDT, so you could just click it and pull your route up really quick. You might see me looking at it. I just want to flash it if possible. Oh yeah, so like my teammates are dragging it. I'm just going to do this to flash the route real quick for others to see. And I do this to just check, with this button. Maybe I don't because I'm flesh crafting. Okay, I guess I don't. Sorry for the bait. But I'll post it in the description, I guess. I think that's easy enough to do. I hope this was useful. Just to show, like, hey, you don't have to be perfect, and You don't have to have these crazy strats to do these high keys. Like, this was mostly a pug. Yes, I was in Discord with my friends, which does help, but I think that's kind of how a lot of people play anyway, of like semi-pugging, I call it. Like, you're with some friends and you need to find some more people and you want to do a key, or maybe you want to pug a raid or something. So this shows like pug-friendly strategies and things to look out for during this key. And yeah, it was closer than I'd want it. Obviously, this wipe could have been avoided by me, and it would have made it a lot less close because we would have had more tools, less wipe. Wiping on this dungeon's really brutal. And yeah, I hope that's useful. Like, this is a way to do this dungeon as a pug. Get your plus 15 Keystone Master Achievement.